Good day. Welcome to the Iol Inclusive Education and Specific Learning Difficulties conduct session for examination. This session is for both for pre-primary, junior primary, senior primary, and senior secondary inclusive education classes. And this is an exam-based conduct class that we have, and it's for 2008. My name is your tutor, Ms. Regina Garizes, and I'll be guiding you through this session. Our objectives for this session is firstly to understand the examination format, understand the exit learning outcomes and type of examination questions that will be asked. We'll understand the questioning verbs to give a correct response to the given question. When we talk about questioning verbs, we talk about the commanding verbs, the verbs that are being used to ask you a question. Those are our objectives for this session. Firstly, the assessment policy, it means that you need to get a final mark of 50% in your assignment, and 60% is calculated from your examination mark, and from there that makes up the 40% mark from the continuous assessment that is been gotten 40% from your assignment mark, and 60% from your examination that makes up the final mark of your minimum mark that you need to pass this course. So it means when you write these exams, you need to get a sub-minimum mark of 15% and above. That's our assessment policy. And what I put in is about Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy, it's actually the verbs, the commanding verbs that I mentioned earlier, which is one of our objectives. There are 6 levels that you need to know on how the questions are being asked in the examination. And it's based on Bloom's taxonomy, and that is also how your learning objectives are being set. Your exit learning objectives, they are also based on the Bloom taxonomy, that we say at the end of the day, we want the students to discuss, to explain, or to demonstrate this skill. Now let's start from the one on the bottom. It's a skill that you need to remember. And the type of questions that will come from like words like define, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, state. So those are the terms that will be used to help you to remember or to help you to recall the basic concepts that you need to know. The second level looks at how you understand things. Now here you need to explain ideas or concepts. And the verbs that are being used on this level are classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize, report, select, and translate. These type of words are looking for the things that you will show your understanding, your understanding of the basic concept. Then it's application, apply. When it comes to the third level, the questions that will come will say demonstrate how you will support a learner with hearing impairment, or interpret the concept of inclusive education in Namibian context. So those are type of questions that will come when you need to apply your knowledge. Analyze questions. You need to draw connection amongst ideas. And that's one thing that students really need to know, that there's connection. If I talk about assessment, and then here this side is about hearing impairment. So it means it's not only about hearing impairment that you need to talk about, but that you need to know what kind of assessment methods needs to be applied to support this learner. So then I'm connecting ideas from every unit to say, how can I apply my knowledge of this concept? Evaluate, it's where you justify or you stand or you take a decision. And there you need to defend your decision to say, if it says, argue the importance of inclusive education in Namibian context, then you need to look at the policy. Then you need to look at what is happening internationally and also here nationally in Namibian context, or within the SADC countries also. Then you need to appraise what's happening and take a judgment. And there you need to have some facts to support your arguments, your reasonings. And lastly, it's where you create, where we say design an individual education plan or develop a framework to support this and that learner with visual impairment. So it means you are connecting ideas from different units where you need to come to do these 3 levels actually, where you analyze, evaluate, and you create. So it's very important for the students to know these concepts, to know Bloom's taxonomy that will guide you how you will answer questions in the examination. Let's move on to the next topic, which is examination format. It's a 2.5 hour paper. The marks are out of 120, and it's mostly open-ended questions that examines your understanding and your application of knowledge, skills, and idea. Going back to Bloom's taxonomy, how do you apply knowledge? And you have to answer on the examination script. That's your examination paper format. We start with the examination guidance. The guidance here, firstly, is to take notice of the mark allocations. We get many times where the marks are 5 marks and the student is answering 1.5 pages for that 5 marks that is being asked in that question. So it means look for the facts that will add up to those marks. Those marks that is being asked in that question. So if a question is asking for 10 marks, then it looks for again 10 facts, or sometimes it might be that it's only 5 marks. Then each facts that you are giving, each answer that you are given might count for 2 marks. So look for that guidance on how you need to answer questions. All questions have command words that are aimed to tell students on what to answer. Often these words are being misinterpreted by the students. For example, when a question is asking for description, many students will then give an explanation on it. If the question says, describe the support that you give to a learner with visual impairment, then you are describing the support. Then the student will tend to explain. So those 2 terms, you need to know what they are asking. Very importantly, you need to study Bloom's taxonomy on how to answer the questions based on the words or commanding words or verbs. Answer what the question is asking for and not what you think the question is asking, just because you have seen one word that might be related to the answer. And that's where many students also go wrong, to say you saw a word inclusive education, then you tend to think that it's asking about a system or about the models of inclusive education, but the whole question is asking for something else. So take notice of that also. When answering a question, there should be a link between theory and practice. So many of you are teachers, are currently teaching in the system. So try to bring out the practices that are happening in your classroom as examples when you are answering the question, and not just give theory on it. Now we start with the questions. The question 1, it has 20 to 25 marks. The questions are 5-mark questions that you find in this section. It's a remember type of questions like define, list, and name. So here the focus when you study it, you should be able to define and compare basic concepts of special needs education. Then it means you need to study all the terminology, all the basic concepts in each unit. For example, what is child abuse? Define disability, define assessment. So study all the basic concepts. Now what I'll advise you is take each study unit and write the basic concepts within that study unit and define them, because that way you are creating a foundation for yourself on what to build on, and from that foundation then you know if the one talks about a disability, what does it mean? Then you write up the basic concepts on it. So try already to know those concepts. Question 2 is 25 to 30 marks that makes out of that question. The questions will make up, the highest marks will be 6 marks in those questions. Here the students will be able or should have a good knowledge and application of features and techniques on working with children with special needs, especially the disabilities mentioned in each of the units. So it means that students should apply different supporting techniques of each disability. Go through the units where the impairments or disabilities are. Write down visual impairment. Look for the supporting techniques. Write down hearing impairment. That way you know Down syndrome, how should I support a learner? Hearing impairment, how should the learner be supported? So it means write all the disabilities, write it down. Then if one of them comes in exam, then you are prepared for which one to answer. So the guidance here is you need to know all of the disabilities on how to support the learner. So the focus in this question is on different supporting techniques for disability. So it might be that one of Down syndrome, autism, or speech impairment might come in. So you need to know how should I support the learners in this type of disability. Question 3, it's having 30 to 35 marks. And here, the maximum mark that is been given to a question is 10 marks. So the focus here is on understanding and remembering questions. Less discuss, describe, explain. Now these questions are looking for ways that you apply or show your understanding of their concepts. Students should be able to answer questions from the following topics. Now in your unit, there is a main topic, and under it there are exit learning outcomes. Do not focus only on this topic that I'm giving. Go into the learning, exit learning outcomes or the learning objectives that are within that unit. So you need to know factors that influence the interaction of teacher with families. Within that topic, there are different subtopics also that looks at how you should create inclusive school. So look at those things, not only the factors within that unit. Secondly, assessment approaches and issues for children with learning difficulties. Firstly, here you need to know the concept as assessment. What is assessment? What are the approaches of assessment? Thirdly, what type of inclusive assessments are there? We talk about assessment accommodations. Those are the learning objectives, the sub learning objectives that you need to know within that unit. Thirdly, the individual education plan for special needs learners. What is an individual education plan? How do we use it? What are the stages of this plan? Know those within that unit. Aspects of child abuse. It contains of many types of child abuse. So look at the sexual abuse, the verbal abuse that is taking place, the physical abuse. Now those are the aspects of child abuse. In that unit, focus on those things. And lastly, the features and techniques of working with children who have special educational needs. Here, we'll touch a bit on supporting techniques, but here you need to know the warning signs of the given impairment or the given disability of the learner. Say, for instance, how do I recognize or how do I know that this child is having a hearing impairment, or this child is tending to go towards a visual impairment, or there's a speech impairment or learning difficulty in that child. Now you need to know those techniques to see the red signs and to support those learners. That means within this question 3, the focus will be on these main topics or these units that you need to focus on within question 3. Question 4, marks are from 30 to 35 marks, and the questions will range from 10 to 15 marks that is allocated to one question. Students need to apply and understand type of questions in terms of describe and discuss. The focus is again on the following topics or following units: the IEP for the special needs learner, the individual education plan, assessment approaches and issues for children with learning difficulties. Again, go into the assessment approaches that are there and see how or what type of assessment is needed for children with learning difficulties. Thirdly, factors influencing the interaction of teachers with families. Within this unit, there are other topics also. So try and focus on those topics also to see what or which a subtopic will make out 10 to 15 marks within this unit. And very importantly, different international perspectives and legislations for protecting the rights of special needs learners. Within this unit, we look at education for all. We look at the policy for inclusive education within Namibian context. We look at international perspectives that are there. So try to describe these topics, these perspectives or the policy, or you need to discuss the policy on inclusive education within Namibian context. And lastly, the basic concepts and the models for special needs education. This goes back to Unit 1. And within Unit 1, we have got different subtopics again, which focus on the models and the system of inclusive education within the Namibian context, and where we looked at what kind of approach of inclusive education do we have in Namibia, and then we look at the schools that are there, the learning support provision that has been made. So look at the subtopics within this unit. And lastly, the studying directions within how you need to tackle its topic. Again, very much emphasizes on this the whole presentation and the whole guidelines in this presentation is for the students who are for BBP, JP, SP, and senior secondary. The topics that are based on the comprehensive exit learning outcomes. Hence, the student needs to consider each learning outcome within the given exit learning outcome or the topic in this presentation. Very important, do not be limited to information in your study guide, but try to read widely. Have study guides with your student, study groups with your student, fellow students, and try to collaborate with other students also to see how they can support you. When you consult your tutor, please try to be specific. Don't be general to say, I don't understand this inclusive education, but be say, ma'am, let's go to Unit 1. Let's see visual impairment. There are different types of visual impairment mentioned. Can you explain that to me? Then that's now being specific and not being general. And then you get the guidance that you need within that topic. And lastly, the contact information. My cell phone number is 081-2714-037. And you can also send the email. But for the email, please give me a day or two to respond to your emails. You can contact me within weekdays from 7:30 to 8:30. And during weekends from 4 o'clock up to 7 o'clock. If you don't get hold of me, or if the phone is occupied, leave a message or send a text message within the time limit. But no call me request and missed calls, please. And that's my contact information. Please study smart, collaborate with your fellow students, and be specific when you are asking me for guidance and direction on how to study. The theme and what we stand for is education is the greatest equalizer, and you've got the potential to become what you want to be a teacher that makes difference in the lives of our learners.